All the
A
best.
very okay, ma'am. A very good evening to all. Hope all are safe. As we all know that we are going through a severe pandemic crisis, so be safe and stay healthy. We had a sad news as our former faculty member, Dr. P.N. Shankaran sir, passed away in Bangalore. Let us pay tribute to his soul by observing a minute of silent prayer. Let me move on to my duty. Myself, Dhanya GS, research scholar, Department of Economics, Government College for Women, wholeheartedly welcome everyone for today's webinar on the topic Digital Resources for Social Science Research, jointly organized by DESA, the Forum of Research Scholars, Department of Economics, Government College for Women. Our resource person for today's session Sri V. Sriram Sir, Chief Librarian, Clay and Rush Library, CDS Trivandrum. With much pride and pleasure, I would like to say that this is our 36th webinar in the EcoWings webinar series of Economics Department. We shall begin the session by invoking the blessings of the Lord Almighty. For the same, I invite Chitralekha, Research Scholar of Economics Department, Government College for Women. Over to you, Chitralekha.
Okay, madam.
Chitralekha.
Yes. അറിവിന്ദ്രകാശനിറയൂഞ്ഞങ്ങൾ കരളിൽ നിന്നിരുൾ മായട്ടെ വിടരാനിരുന്നു മുകുളങ്ങളിൽ സ്നേഹമധുരം നിറഞ്ഞിടട്ടെ അറിവിൻ പ്രകാശമേ നിറയൂ നീ ഞങ്ങൾ തൻ കരളിൽ നിന്നിരുൾ മായട്ടെ തളരാതെ നേരിൻ്റെ വഴിയിൽ നടന്നിടാം ബലമേകി നിന്നിടേണം പരമാർത്ഥമൊക്കെയും തിരയാൻ മനസ്സിൻ്റെ മിഴികൾ തുറന്നിടേണം മിഴികൾ തുറന്നിടേണം അറിവിൻ പ്രകാശമേ നിറയൂ നീ ഞങ്ങൾ തൻ കരളിൽ നിന്നിരുൾ മായട്ടെ കരളിൽ നിന്നിരുൾ മായട്ടെ കരളിൽ നിന്നിരുൾ മായട്ടെ
Thank you, Chitralekha. We all are blessed indeed. Next, may I humbly request Dr. Uma Jyoti V, Associate Professor and HOD of Economics Department, Government College for Women, to deliver the welcome address. Please, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Dhanya. Good evening to all. Respected Vice Principal Anila Madam, distinguished speaker of this webinar, Sri V. Sriram, dear colleagues, other participants and coordinators. This is the 36th webinar in the EcoWings webinar series. Of course, each webinar has been aiming to expand knowledge and also to interact with resource persons from diverse fields. But in addition, these virtual platforms have been enabling us to stay connected amid the disconnecting fury of the coronavirus. Extending my hearty congratulations to the student coordinators of this webinar, the cheerful team of full-time research scholars, the Deepta team. Let me move to my pleasant duty. Our Vice Principal, Srimati Anila JS, who is also the Principal in charge, has always been a true source of support. Despite a very busy official schedule, she has reached this online platform. So thanking Anila Madam, I welcome her on behalf of all participants of this webinar. Hearty welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
We are really honored and blessed to have a very distinguished resource person, Sri V. Sriram, Chief Librarian, KN Library, Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram. Of course, one of the coordinators will be introducing him in detail. Sriram sir is an experienced librarian with unique academic passion and commendable vision. I have always felt that he is a true change maker. Many of us know him as a people friendly or customer friendly librarian and as a motivator. He has to his credit several innovative modernization projects and academic initiatives. He is a very popular resource person and an excellent writer as well. In fact, I must thank his batchmate Darshana Gobinath, our alumna, and also the Chief Librarian of Kendriya Vidyalaya Akulam for her help in inviting Sri Ram sir. We have been waiting for such an opportunity to interact with this resource person. I remember reading somewhere that Google can bring back 10,000 answers, but a librarian can bring you back the right one. So here is a librarian who has been playing that role remarkably well. And he is here to connect us with one of the vital resources in higher education, digital resources for social science research. As you know, we are in a learning age transformed by digital revolution, and the digital resources open up amazing windows to make our learning and research more focused, systematic, and rewarding. So, with immense gratitude for accepting our invitation, let me wholeheartedly welcome Sriram sir on behalf of all the participants, our department, and our college. Hearty welcome, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Manjus Nair, an inspiring professor and mentor, professor of the Department of Economics, University of Kerala, is here. Hearty welcome, my dear friend. I think the rain is posing some issues in certain parts of Kerala. This is actually a national webinar. We have participants from outside our state also. Hearty welcome to all of you, to all the participants, to my colleagues, to the coordinators, to the representatives of our Alumni Association, Sakita, and of course to our dear children. Welcome. Wishing you all a very fruitful session. I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, I humbly invite Dr. Anila J.S., Vice Principal, Government College for Women, to deliver the presidential address. Ma'am, please.
നമസ്കാരം. ടീച്ചർ പറഞ്ഞ സ്വാഗതത്തിന് നന്ദി. ശരിക്കും നമ്മുടെ ഒരു കോവിഡിൻ്റെ സെക്കൻഡ് ജനറേഷനുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് ഒരു പ്രാണവായു പോലും കിട്ടാനായിട്ട് നമ്മൾ സ്ട്രഗിൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന ഈ സമയത്ത് നമ്മുടെ കോളേജിൽ അത്തരം ഒരു പ്ലാറ്റ്ഫോമിലേക്ക് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ നമ്മളൊരു ഓക്സിജൻ സിലിണ്ടർ സംഭരണ കേന്ദ്രമായിട്ടും അതിൻ്റെ വാർ റൂമായിട്ടും ഒക്കെ നമുക്കും നമ്മുടെ കോളേജിൽ ഭാഗമാകാൻ സാധിച്ചു എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ആത്മനിർവൃത്തിയോടെയാണ് ഈ മീറ്റിങ്ങിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നത്. അതിൻ്റെ തിരക്കുകൾ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു എന്ന് ടീച്ചർ പറഞ്ഞതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഏതാണ്ട് ഒരു 3 മണിവരെ കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചെയ്ത് തീർക്കേണ്ട ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. എങ്കിലും ഈ ഒരു വെബിനാർ ശരിക്കും കഴിഞ്ഞ ലോക്ക്ഡൗൺ സമയത്ത് തുടങ്ങി ഇപ്പോൾ വരെ സീരിയസ് ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെൻറ്റുകളിൽ ഒന്നാണ് ഉമ ടീച്ചർ നേതൃത്വം നൽകുന്ന എക്കണോമിക്സ് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെൻറ്റ്. ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെൻറ്റിനെ അനുമോദിക്കുന്നു. കൂടാതെ ഇന്നത്തെ വെബിനാർ ക്ലാസ്സുകൾ നയിക്കുന്ന ശ്രീറാം സാറ്, ഡിജിറ്റൽ റിസോഴ്സസ് ഫോർ സോഷ്യൽ സയൻസ് എന്ന ടോപ്പിക് സാറ്, പ്രഗത്ഭനും പ്രശസ്തനുമായ സാറിൻ്റെ ക്ലാസ് ചിത്രലേഖ പാടിയ പാട്ട് പോലെ അറിവിൻ പ്രകാശം നിറയട്ടെ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആ വരികൾ അന്വർത്ഥമാക്കട്ടെ എന്ന് ആശംസിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഈ ഒരു വെബിനാർ സീരീസിന് എല്ലാവിധ ഭാവങ്ങളും നേർന്നു. നന്ദി.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. To introduce our felicitator of the day, I invite Bhavana Mol R, Research Scholar of Economics Department, Government College for Women. Over to you, Bhavana.
Thank you, Chechi. Good evening, everyone. It's my privilege and pleasure to introduce our guest, V. Sriram sir. He has done his graduation in English language and literature and post-graduation in library and information science. He has also passed the UGC NET in library and information science. Soon after completing his studies in 1997, he worked in school libraries for 2 years. In 1999, he joined Institute of Human Resource Development, IHRD Kerala, and worked in libraries of Engineering College established by IHRD. From 2004 to 2008, he was with British Library Thiruvananthapuram as assistant librarian responsible for customer services and ICT system. And the subsequent 2 years, he worked with Leipzig Limited as technical service executive responsible for customer support in South India and Sri Lanka, also providing customer training and providing domain expertise for software developers. He is at present working as chief librarian of KN Raj Library Center for Development Studies, Thiruvananthapuram. From the first institution where he worked onward, he has tried to implement library automation and modernization and start customer-centric services. Apart from routine library or information management, he has experience in managing IT operations, communications, customer relations, and training. He was the library consultant for FISAT Angamali in 2002 and Trinity College of Engineering, Trivandrum in 2010 and established those libraries. He is a member of the Board of Studies of Department of Library and Information Science, Rajagiri College of Social Sciences, Kochi. He is also a very good writer. He has published a journal article and co-edited a book. We are so happy to have you here, sir. Once again, hearty welcome to the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bhavana. I request every participants to please turn off their video and audio for the smooth conduct of the webinar. So we can start the session. For that, I cordially invite Sriram sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So good evening, all of you. I hope the screen is visible. Thank you very much to the organizers, Dr. Uma Jodi and the Vice Principal and the participants. It's an excellent occasion to join all of you. I understand that in this pandemic situation, Women's College Economics Department has been organizing several webinars, a series of webinars, and I'm extremely happy to be part of the same. In the next 1.5 hours, I would like to introduce some social science resources broadly categorized into journals, books, statistical databases, thesis and dissertation databases, courseware, multimedia datasets, archives, and information portals. I have selected these in terms of your requirement for your studies, for your research exclusively, for your learning, as well as for updating your knowledge base. Of course, these are not completely an exhaustive set of resources. There are many, many more resources actually. These are just a sample of them. I believe it may be possible that some of you have already been acquainted with some of these resources. So if you know them, it is good to refresh your knowledge. And for others, it will be good to learn how to use them. Before I begin, if I am going too fast, please ask me to slow down. And if there is some technical difficulty, if my audio is down or something, please alert me because there is a heavy rain going on here. So there is a possibility that network connection might get disrupted in between. So to begin with, journals. Journals are one of the key resources which a scholar and a student and a serious scholar are supposed to be acquainted with all the time. Journals publish original data. Any research output first gets published as journal article. Journals come under different categories of publishers. It can be published by um, commercial publishers such as Sage or Springer or Wiley or Elsevier. It can also be published by research organizations, institutes of higher education, universities such as Cambridge University Press or Oxford. You might have heard of umpteen number of institutional journals also. Journals are uh, carriers of high quality, timely, current data and information about latest changes that happen across the globe in the area of academics, and they bring high citations to the author. Of course, in terms of its procurement, some of these journals are highly costly journals which can't be afforded by institutions. It may be possible that your library may not be having it, but definitely quite a lot of these journal data sets are available through Infonet consortia provided by UGC for the Government of India, and it is accessible for you in your nearest university library also. And in the current situation, like most of the publishers are providing them online free of charge. So you can take a look at them, and in case you are interested, you can access them. Moving on from individual journal publishers, uh, this journal database called Econlit is an excellent database of journals, very, very high quality journals in the area of economics. Econlit is originally the indexing that is provided by American Economic Association. Several resourceful journal providers and commercial database providers have taken up those indexes, and they have started providing the full text of it. You have the ProQuest, you have the EBSCO. On the screen, what you see is the EBSCO database of Econlit. Currently, Econlit brings to you about 600 journals, all very high quality, good journals. And for the journals of American Economic Association, you get the latest issues also. For other journals, the applicable embargo of the publisher would be there. Embargo, I believe some of you would know. Embargo in the sense on online, in databases and in aggregate publications, you may not get access to the latest issues. Let us say this is the month of May, and if it is a quarterly journal, which means the March or April issue would have been released. However, publishers might decide that they will not release the latest issue in databases, because that's purely their commercial requirement on their marketing point of view. So in databases, you may not get access to the latest issues. So that is what we call as embargo. Sometimes the embargo is for 3 months, sometimes 6 months. It can go up to 1 year also. So it depends on the journal publisher, the embargo would apply. The next data set is JSTOR in journal database. This is a very good, rather an excellent scholarly archive of journals in the area of social science as well as arts and humanities. It was launched as a non-governmental digitization initiative in 1995. And over a period of time, it has become very, very famous and highly used database by social science scholars. I'm pretty sure most of you would have heard about it. Currently, you get access to about 2,500 plus journals in this. One major aspect of JSTOR is that you get access to quite a lot of old journals. Getting old journals is always a difficulty for scholars. And in JSTOR, you get some journals that are even 100 years old. Some of these journals have stopped publication, and you will not get it anywhere else in other libraries also. So JSTOR in that sense is a highly reputed and very useful database. And over a period of time now, JSTOR have started providing ebooks also. Another database in journals is Project Muse. Project Muse started as a collaboration between several university libraries in United States. It was also established in 1995 as a non-governmental initiative. Again, they are also a leading provider of journal content in the area of social science and arts and humanities. You get quite a lot of journals published by university presses in United States through Project Muse. In probably you get 110 plus journals in the area of economics itself in Project Muse. Over a period of time now, Project Muse have started providing ebooks also of university press in United States. Moving on from commercial databases, open access, I believe some of you would have heard about this. Open access is now coming up in a very big way. The idea is that scholars spend a lot of their time doing research, and governments and non-governmental institutions bear all the cost for this research. And ultimately what happens is it gets published in commercial publishers, which gets locked down in the name of copyright. And ultimately the librarians of the same institution have the burden to buy those journals and keep it in the library. So who makes money out of the whole business? It's the intermediary publishers. So that led over a period of time, the last 15 years, a new movement has caught up, which is called open access. The advantage of information technology is highly reputed, and it has been completely exploited by this open access movement. The idea is that knowledge should be for everybody, and journals can be published online also free of cost. Mostly upfront, the money would be paid by the non-governmental institution, the funding agency or the project sponsor itself would pay money for publishing the journal article. And on the internet, it will be put openly free so that anybody can download and read it. And quite a lot of such journals have been in the run now over a period of time. And now you see some 16,000 plus journals are available in the open access. And DOAJ, what you see on the screen now, the directory of open access journals, is the primary launch point for all of you if you want to search journal articles that are available online. It's an extremely good resource which leads you to the journals and journal articles published by reputed publishers as open access journals. All the journals in this directory are free to access, download and read. Especially in the area of social sciences, you get about 2,000 journals. Next open access database is called PLOS. PLOS stands for Public Library of Science. It's a non-profit publisher. They started providing publishing journals, open access journals, and all top quality peer-reviewed content they handle. All the journals are free. Currently, they publish 12 journals in different subject streams, out of which PLOS 1 is a multidisciplinary journal which provides you quite a lot of articles in the area of social sciences. You can take a look at it. Currently, it will give you some 10,000 plus articles in the area of social science alone. It's a very good database for the scholars. Now moving on to books, as I said, open access have started coming up in a very big way, and the publishers are also looking at providing ebooks instead of publishing it as print books alone. So book databases are also now coming up in a very big way on the internet. And this is the central directory of open access books. It's called the DOAB. the directory of open access books. It's again a leading index of open access books, extremely good resource for scholars and students. Currently, it gives access to some 40,000 plus ebooks published by some 600 plus publishers across the globe, worldwide, in all the subjects. All ebooks in this collection are free to download and used by the scholars. I picked up another database exclusively for economics students. This is called the Library of Economics and Liberty. It's a very good database. It's a dedicated website of resources in the area of economics, economic thought, economic markets, as well as the concept of liberty. And you get access to quite a lot of ebooks, journal articles, popular blogs in the area of economics, as well as several video resources also. Another key feature of this database is that you get access to the concise encyclopedia of economics, which is a very excellent encyclopedia in the area of economics, which will be useful for students. Moving on to statistical data. Scholars and students in higher education have to look at statistical data in a very big way as part of your research. And one database which is of extreme importance for economic students is the Census of India. Census of India is one of the most authoritative information on Indian demography. A very comprehensive database, very rich in content. You can look at, it's not just demography, not just the numbers of the population that it gives you, but it looks at quite a lot of other aspects of India and Indian society. You can look at it. See, it gives you the information about economic activity, literacy, education, housing and household amenities, urbanization, fertility, mortality, scheduled caste and scheduled tribe information, languages, religion, migration, disability, and a quite lot of other socio-cultural and demographic data. Very, very good database. In fact, I would recommend that all of you should spend just 3 days of your time in the beginning of your research. Just spend 3 days, look at the site in detail and make a note of it. I believe some 50% of your data requirement will be solved using this itself. The last two census conducted in India, that is 2001 and 2011, are available for free download on the website itself. Older ones, you will have to visit the nearest university library. Another database, especially in Kerala, is the Ecostat Kerala. Ecostat is the central portal of the Department of Economics and Statistics of the government of Kerala. This department is given the task of collection, compilation, analysis, and dissemination of statistics about Kerala in a very big way. This data set gives you quite a lot of information on Kerala, especially in the area of Kerala's geography, demography, administration and governance, economy, agriculture, education, health, employment, industry, finance, and so on. And the coverage goes up to the district level in most cases. Very good database for those who are working on Kerala's economy. Moving on to the budget documents. Budget documents are also of extremely importance for the students and scholars. These two budget documents, that is the Union Budget of Government of India is available completely for your use entirely. Starting from 1947 onwards, the entire set is available for download and use. For Kerala budget, currently only from 2002 is available in the digital format. The previous ones, you will have to either go to the nearest university library or go to the legislature library of government of Kerala. Next is the Economic Survey of India. I believe most of you have heard of both Economic Survey of India, which is released always just on the previous day of the budget presentation in the parliament. This is an annual publication of the government of India, which looks at the programs, plans, policies, and performance of government of India in the previous year. You get access to detailed statistics also of all these topics of what has happened in the previous year itself. Online, you get now access from the 1957 economic survey onwards. The entire run is available, free to download and use. Next one is the economic review of government of Kerala. Just like economic survey, economic review is also released on the previous day of the budget presentation in Kerala's legislature. It's the annual publication which is released by the Kerala State Planning Board on behalf of government of Kerala. It gives you the snapshot of what has happened in the previous year in terms of the policies, programs, and the performance of the government of Kerala in different sectors. And it also gives you detailed statistics about these sectors. Very good resource for those who are working on Kerala's economy. Currently, you have the entire run from 1959 onwards. All the economic reviews of government of Kerala is available for free download and use. Next database which I would like to introduce is the India Time Series. ITS is released by the Economic and Political Weeklies Research Foundation. It's a very comprehensive database on Indian economy. It gives you access to quite a large set of database categorized into 23 topics, including agriculture, employment, wages, industry, power sector, finance sector, banking, health, education, insurance, etc. It's a paid database. It's not a free database. It's a paid database, but it's not very costly. And I'm pretty sure it will be available either in your institution or in your nearest university library. You can always contact them for their services. Next one is ICSSR's data service. ICSSR, as all of you know, is the Indian Council for Social Science Research. They have launched this portal called ICSSR Data Service about 5 years back. It's an extremely good database which provides primary data sets in the area of national surveys conducted by the government of India. This database is provided free to all students in India and scholars and researchers. In fact, ICSSR data service has a facility of accepting data submissions also. If you are working on some qualitative data and after submission of your thesis, if you wish to provide your data set also in the open, you can always submit it to ICSSR. It's a free service. However, it's not open in the sense you need to first register and obtain a login ID and password. Next database is from MOSPI. MOSPI, as all of you know, is the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation of Government of India. They have been given the task of conducting large-scale surveys and releasing their data sets and reports of these surveys. I believe you have all heard about the annual surveys of industries, then the national sample surveys, the national account statistics, the consumer price index database. All these are done by MOSPI, and these databases are now available for free access on the MOSPI website itself. So you can take a look at that and start accessing the same if it is required for your studies. Next one is the open government data of Government of India. Government of India has an open data policy, and now it's mandatory that all ministries and departments of Government of India should provide the databases free for access for all its citizens. And this is the base platform where it is done. So you can take a look at it. All data hosted here is for public use. Currently, about 4,95,000 databases, data sets, specific resources are available for download and use, provided by around 170 plus departments and ministries of Government of India. This is ProVes IQ, which is provided by the Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy. This database mainly deals with the industrial sector in India, largely looking at the Indian companies in different sectors. Currently, they provide access to some 41,000 plus companies established in India, and they give you access to time series data for the last 30 years. It's a paid commercial database, but it's not that very costly, and it should be mostly available in your institution or most probably in your nearest university library also. So you can contact them if you're working on industrial economics. Another database which is of utmost importance for economics students and scholars in India is the Reserve Bank's database on Indian economy, which is what we call as the DBIE, which is the central data portal of Reserve Bank of India, which gives you access to time series aspect of Indian economy in several topics, including agriculture, industry, income, prices and wages, corporate sector, finance and banking, markets, external sector, including remittances, public finance, socio-economic indicators, etc. Apart from this, Reserve Bank also releases the public debt statistics also, and you get an extensive banking statistics related to India from Reserve Bank. This banking statistics is released on a daily basis, weekly, fortnightly, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly, half-yearly, and annually. And all these data sets of Reserve Bank of India are available for free download and use for your studies. Now we will move on to some international data also, which might be required for your studies. Let us look at the Asian Development Bank's data library. This is the central database of the Asian Development Bank. Currently, they provide access to data in 15 broad categories, including agriculture, rural development, environment, education, finance, gender, health, industry, information and communications technology, human resources, governance, regional cooperation, socio-economic development, trade, transport, etc. And the coverage is of all Asian countries, and all data is available for free download and use. Next one is the IMF data. IMF, as all of you know, is the International Monetary Fund, the large banking corporation at the international level, which helps countries to come up in its financial sector. IMF data is the central research repository of the IMF, a very comprehensive database. And apart from this, IMF also provides all its publications openly for free download and use. This IMF database gives you access to several key data statistics, including the international finance statistics, the direction of trade statistics, government finance statistics, balance of payments statistics, and the World Economic Outlook data. Very comprehensive data sets, very useful for the students who are looking at the international economics. Comtrade provided by United Nations is also a very good database in terms of getting access to the global trade statistics. Uh, it looks at the international trade across all countries, including all goods and all services. It's an excellent database for those who are looking at trade and economy. Very good database actually. It's partially free in the sense, if you are, let us say, you are looking at the trade between two countries for maybe five goods, maybe for the last 5 to 10 years, the data set may not be very large. So in that sense, it's available for you for free. Up to 50,000 records, you can freely access and download the data. While if you are looking at the entire data set, let us say you are looking at all countries and all data, all goods and all services for all the years. So if you're looking at a very large data set for research, then you might require a paid access. That's all. But however, it's not a very costly database. So again, it should be available for you in your institute or maybe in the nearest university library. Next one is the database of World Bank. This initiative from World Bank gives you access to a wide range of socio-economic data, broadly categorized into some 20 topics, including agriculture, foreign aid, rural development, environment, economy, growth, education, energy, external debts, finance, gender, health, infrastructure, poverty, public and private sectors, science and technology, social development, labor, trade, urban development, etc. All data is available for free to download. The coverage is all countries worldwide. Now, moving on to the next category, for scholars and higher education students, as part of your studies, you are required to run literature search on the studies conducted by other scholars and students previously, which is that you are supposed to look at the theses and dissertations that have been published already. And we will quickly look at some databases in electronic form of theses and dissertations. This is the open dissertations provided by EBSCO, the publisher. It's a free electronic theses and dissertations database, a very good database of electronic theses and dissertations published worldwide. Currently, it hosts about 14 lakh plus theses and dissertations covering some 320 plus universities and higher education institutions worldwide. This was established in 2014. It's a fully free to access database. ETHOS. ETHOS stands for the Electronic Thesis Online Service. This is the thesis and dissertations repository of all universities and higher education institutions in the United Kingdom. It's hosted and provided by the British Library in UK. Why I have included here? You will be surprised to see how much studies about India is being conducted in universities in UK. It's a very good resource if you are looking at quite a lot of information about studies in your area might be already conducted by scholars sitting in UK universities. Some of them are Indian students as well. So in that sense, it's a extremely good database for you. It's mostly free. However, it's not open. You will have to register and obtain a login ID and password from them. Next one is NDLTD. NDLTD is the Network Digital Library of Theses and Dissertations. It's an international organization which is working on preservation of theses and dissertations worldwide. This initiative was established in 1987, way back in 1987. Currently, it has come up as a global digital library of theses and dissertations, a very good database which provides you access to about 60 lakhs of theses and dissertations submitted in institutions worldwide, fully free and open access for you to download and use. Next one is open access thesis and dissertations. This is another NGO which works for providing theses and dissertations in the area of open access worldwide. It's trying to be one of the best electronic thesis and dissertations portal, and currently it hosts about 56 lakhs e-theses and dissertations submitted in institutions worldwide. Shodh Ganga, I believe most of you know about this already. Shodh Ganga is the initiative from India, which is the official electronic thesis and dissertations portal of India, which is provided by the InflibNet for UGC on behalf of Government of India. They are tasked with the preservation of theses and dissertations submitted in universities in India. Currently, it hosts about 3 lakhs plus theses and dissertations from about 490 plus universities in India. Very good database if you are working. It will be very useful for you for your research. Moving on to the next category of resources, Courseware. I have included Courseware because it will be extremely helpful for your higher studies. It will give you an additional complement to the resources that you are using for your studies. First one is edX. I believe the concept of MOOCs, the massive open online courses, came up in the last 10 to 15 years, and edX is currently the most popular MOOC platform in the world. It was established as a non-profit venture by some universities in United States. Over a period of time, it has become very popular online learning platform. Currently, it provides you access to some 3,000 plus courses. It's free to learn. In the sense, most of these open online courses are free to learn. Only that if you are interested in getting a certificate, you need to pay fees and sit for an exam and get the certificate. Next one is the MIT's open courses. MIT is a Massachusetts Institute of Technology. MIT is the pioneer in the area of massive open online courses. And currently they provide all their courses parallelly online as well as in their campus. And you can look at their website. It gives you access to all the materials that are used by the teachers in MIT for conducting their classes. Very useful resources. You can look at their syllabi, the readings, the assignments, the study materials, and all the resources. These are all open for you to download and use for your studies as well. Swayam. Swayam is the MOOC platform of India. It's a very good resource. The aim is to provide a learning facility, a lifelong learning facility for Indian citizens. It provides all institutions is open to conduct their courses online through Swayam. Currently, classes from 9th onwards up to the PG level are available on Swayam. Quite a lot of resources are there. It's not open. You need to register and obtain a login ID and password, and then join a course and attend the classes online. Again, as I said, in case you are interested in getting certificates, you need to pay the fee and appear for the examination also. But otherwise, it's a very good database. Moving on to the next category, it's multimedia resources. Apart from the text-based resources such as journals or books uh, or thesis and dissertations, multimedia also has come up in a very big way. It has become very popular. Time is of value and importance for everybody, right? And even when you are traveling also, you get the advantage if you are using a multimedia platform for learning. And one such good platform for economics students is the podcasts, the audio casts of the IMF. It's a very good resource to listen, where you get to know about the latest issues of the day as discussed by the leading economists and other experts across the globe uh, on the area of economics, on the area of finance, and etc. Currently, some 550 plus talks are available. All of them are short talks, just about 25 to 30 minutes, very quick talks. In fact, you can just start as soon as you leave your home, put the data on and listen to a talk. By the time you reach your college, you would have listened to one of them. So it's that easy for you to listen and learn from that. All talks are free to listen. Next one in terms of multimedia is the channel called Kautilya. Swayam Prabha is the initiative of Government of India. Government of India has come up with 34 high quality DTH channels, uh, all available free of charge for the students and scholars in India. And one channel, the channel number 7, Kautilya, is exclusively for the use of students of economics. You can look at that. As the name itself suggests, Kautilyan, this channel gives access to topics, videos in the area of topics in economics, commerce, as well as finance. It's available on the web as well as a YouTube channel also. All talks that has been already done, delivered, are also archived in the YouTube links, so you can access to it whenever you want and you can listen to them. Another portal is called Vidya Mitra. It's also an initiative of Government of India. It's an integrated e-content portal which is provided by UGC, which gives access to the audio visual materials for your studies. Currently, there are some 2,300 plus resources in the area of social science. Most of them are in the form of videos. I thought of including YouTube also into this. YouTube, I'm pretty sure all of you are using also. YouTube contains umpteen number of videos. Quite a lot of them are useful also for your studies. This is the most popular, or rather the second most popular social media platform. It was launched in 2005 as an online video sharing platform. High quality resources in most of the topics are available. You just search whichever topic you are working on, you want to study microeconomics, macroeconomics, finance, statistics, econometrics, industrial economics, or agricultural economics, any topic you want from the basic level onwards, you will definitely find at least 20 videos of it in YouTube. So in that sense, it's an extremely good resource for you to start using. Let's move on to the next category, that is archives. Archived materials are also available on the internet in umpteen number of formats. This archive is called Archive, and it's a curated open access research sharing portal hosted by the Cornell University in US. For social science, especially for economics students, you have quite a lot of materials in the area of mathematics, quantitative finance, statistics, as well as in economics. All resources are free to download and use. I have added one more for you. Krishi Kosh this is an initiative of Indian Council for Agriculture Research. Krishi Kosh gives access to agriculture-based academic resources. It's a digital library on agriculture based on publications from agricultural universities and higher education institutions concentrating on agriculture in India. In agricultural economics, there are about 8,000 resources available. Plus, in the area of agricultural business management, you have another 2,000 resources. All are free to download and use. The next one is the National Digital Library of India. This is a dream project of Government of India, which was launched about 5 years back. It's an ambitious project of Ministry of Education. It's actually a virtual library of all the resources of Indian institutions brought to you in a single search interface. And currently it hosts about 7 lakhs plus items, 7 crore plus items. NDL is available on the web as well as it's available as mobile app for Android as well as on the iOS. So you can just go to your Play Store or App Store and download and use the NDL app also. It's a very extremely good resource on India. The ultimate objective is that connecting NDL with Swayam, our hope and dream is that in the days to come, scholars and students in India will not have to go roam around for searching for resources. If you have a device with a data connection, all your resource requirements would be satisfied from these two data sets itself. So that is the ultimate objective of Government of India. ROR, the Registry of Open Access Repositories, is an initiative from University of Southampton, UK. It's the directory of open access digital libraries of research institutes worldwide. Most of the research institutes and universities have their own digital libraries. However, you will have to go and find where it is. Some of them are on the deep web, may not be easily accessible. While if you just go to ROR, ROR will give you easy access and help to find out the repositories available in the area that you are looking at. It gives access to information about journal articles, theses, data, working papers, and all other publications from higher education and research institutes worldwide. It's a free to access database. Moving on, information portals are always very useful for students and scholars and researchers. It helps you to keep updated in your area, to know about what are the current developments that are happening across the globe in the area that you are working on. And for economics students, I recommend starting with LDIS. LDIS provides information on latest research on development worldwide, especially in the areas of agriculture, external aid, environment, education, finance, gender, governance, health, migration, poverty, trade, welfare, etc. And the coverage is worldwide. And it's a free resource to access and use. Another information service is the New Economic Papers. NEP, I believe some of you have heard about this. NEP is an automated email announcement service provided by REPIC, the Research Papers in Economics service. It gives you information about the new papers that are added to the REPIC archives. You just need to register with your email ID and select the category. Some 97 subject specializations within economics are available. including microeconomics, macroeconomics, finance, agriculture, banking, econometrics, energy, environment, gender, innovation, labor, transport, tourism, urban economics, etc. And once you have selected, every week on a fixed day, you will receive an email giving you information about what are the latest publications that have been added to the REPIC archive uh, in the area that you have selected. SSRN is a social science research network initiative which provides information about what is happening in the area of social science research worldwide. It's a very good resource actually for scholars and students. You get access to around 950,000 papers. Most of them are free to download and use. Moving on to the next one, I will just briefly talk about, because you have looked at a lot of resources now. So how to manage them? We will discuss them very quickly. Managing resources is not very difficult if you are very systematic. Use proper tools for gathering literature, such as Google Scholar, journal databases that we have looked at, bibliographies, library catalogs, etc., and gather information from that. Then next step is look at them, and whatever you are interested in, create bibliographic records for each and every one of them that you are looking at. Then once you have read, write a brief summary about that resource. If you have any detailed notes about it, then write that notes as well. And if you have any comments also, you can add it to it. And remember, these bibliographic records should be error-free so that you can later use it while you are writing your publication or while you are writing your thesis. Next step is that whatever bibliographic records and details you have created, organize them in some systematic way which is important to you. There is no hard and fast rule, whichever way you want to organize it. Either you want to do it by topic, or you want to do it by subject, or you want to do it by research area, or you want to do it the entire thing in an alphabetical order. Whichever way you want, you can do it. The idea is that within 30 seconds, you should be able to find out what you're looking for. More than 30 seconds means your system is not correct. So that to that extent, no matter you have 100 citations or no matter you have 2000 citations, the retrieval time should be less than 30 seconds. That should be your idea. And if it is a soft copy, maintain a link of it pointing to the full text so that you can retrieve it later also. And if it is a print item which you have maintained somewhere, put a remark about that as well. And while you are writing, use these resources, insert them as citations and bibliography in the desired citation style, so that you can remember about. And information technology now gives you the facility of maintaining and managing these literature very quickly, very easily. You can start using Mendeley or Zotero or any free reference management software which helps you to gather references from the internet, and it has the facility to add notes and comments, etc. As well as there are plugins available which can actually integrate your reference management software with your word processing software, whether you are using Microsoft Word or whether you are using OpenOffice. You can integrate this reference software so that you can easily insert the citations and generate bibliographies very quickly. So in that sense, you can start using reference management softwares. It's very easy to use. You just have to learn it. Just spend 1 hour downloading the software and installing them, and go to YouTube. There will be umpteen number of videos about how to install and use reference management software. It's quick to learn. It's very easy in the sense you will have all your references in a single place. so that when you are writing, it will be very easy for you to create citations and bibliography. One more aspect which scholars and students should remember is about preventing plagiarism from happening. Plagiarism, as all of you know, is copying a large portion from some external source and using it in your publications or your thesis or dissertations. That should not happen. It may not be that always plagiarism happens deliberately. Sometimes by mistake also it happens. So you should be always aware of what is plagiarism and how to prevent plagiarism from happening. You are not allowed to copy large portion of material from another publication, or you are not allowed to paraphrase them in a way that you just change the words into another synonym and make it look like your own writing. All such practices are unethical. The idea is that any publication, any thesis, any assignments that you prepare and you submit as your own should be your original writing. That is the idea, and that integrity is expected from all scholars and researchers and students of higher education. And just to safeguard you can use these open access plagiarism tools. Of course, your institution or your university will check for plagiarism when you submit your thesis. For that, they use commercial software such as Turnitin or Urkund, etc. However, before submitting that also, you can check for plagiarism in open access softwares. These open access digital tools are free to use, so you can actually check whether by mistake also you have created some plagiarism in your documents. As per UGC norms, external sources should not go beyond 10% of your publication. While if it is journals, when you are submitting articles to journals, they never accept external materials beyond 5%. Some of them even not beyond 3%. So to that extent, the materials that you use on your publications, in your thesis, dissertations should be your own. There is nothing wrong in attributing ideas to others, and that is what is expected from a honest scholar also. The ideas of someone else which you are taking for your publication, you can always quote from other publication, but you should provide the original author's name and the details of that publication from where you took that idea. However, you can actually write it in your own words and you can give the attribution as citation also. There is no need to quote the entire text here in your publication if attribution is sufficient. Let us say, unless it is a quotation, unless it is like you are defining, definitions of course would never change. So you will have to use the same definition. But if it is not, then you can always write in your words and give the citation and references. So the idea is that as scholars, every writing of yours, every assignments, every journal article that you write, every conference paper that you present, your thesis, your dissertations should be original in language. And to conclude, all of you are serious scholars and students. Research is a very serious activity, and thereby we expect that you take it in that spirit itself. Avoid using incorrect and unverified sources. Use, ideally, wherever possible, use only peer-reviewed content. Try to use Google Scholar instead of Google. Gone are the days you are not school students to use Google. You have to use Google Scholar to retrieve material. And wherever possible, give prominence to open access also. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable insights on the topic and also for imparting and updating us with knowledge on various digital resources. I should say all students and especially the research scholars will be truly benefiting from this session. Now, we will take some time for questions. The meeting is now open for sharing. While asking questions, please unmute your audio. If not, you can write it on the chat box.
I have
Hi, sir.
on the, one second, I have on the chat box, I have given the link to the presentation that I have used for today's
Okay.
talk. So
Okay.
whoever wants, you can access that. It's open. Yeah, please go ahead.
Anyone?
Hi, sir. Hello. Am I
Yes.
audible?
Yes, yes.
Sir, my name is Kriti. I'm going to join as a research scholar by July and currently trying to find base papers that can be used for my thesis based on my topic. And I'm so happy to attend this webinar as I was completely stuck with finding research papers. My question is, when I was searching the source of data for the topic concerned, the databases such as NSSO are quite difficult to extract the data or the indicators we want from that last data source. So I came across certain team who conducts detailed workshops on this extraction of NSSO data using certain softwares like Stata, which are quite expensive. So is there any option for the libraries to access to such data extractions for these sites as per our needs? Like whether we'll get a consolidated data from just the indicators we want for our study.
Please remember that usage of data, collection of data, its analysis, and finding out information from that analysis also is part of researchers' research process. Ideally, don't cut through that using shortcuts because you spend some time now learning about either Stata or SPSS or R statistical software, and to learn about how to extract data from National Sample Survey and how to do the analysis. That will be extremely useful for you in the years to come as a serious scholar and researcher. Currently you may have to maybe spend about a month to read about these statistical softwares and start testing yourself. First creating small data sets and doing its analysis and moving on to a larger data sets like National Sample Survey and doing it. To begin with, spend some time. That is my recommendation. Bypassing it won't be a solution in the longer run. Rigorous research always requires that as a scholar, you are supposed to learn all the tools of the game yourself, so that later on it will be very useful for you. Scholarly institutions, if you take universities or if you take research institutions, they also conduct workshops. I will not recommend private workshops of other places, but you can always attend the workshops that are conducted by universities or colleges or research institutions like Center for Development Studies. We conduct workshops which are very useful for scholars about how to learn to use statistical tools and how to conduct analysis using these tools. These are extremely useful for you. I'm sure this is just a deposit that you put now and it will reap a lot of interest in the years to come.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Kriti. I hope this answers your question. Please do take this as an opportunity to clear your doubts. Please don't hesitate to ask your doubts.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
My name is Salina Bibi, a research scholar, and I now want, according to some certain guidelines of UGC, the research scholars are needed to publish their articles in UGC care journals.
Yes.
Then, as a resource person, sir, please suggest some UGC care journals for some our social science researchers.
See, if you go to the website of UGC Care, it will give you the journals details in a very clear format. You can search for journals in your area itself. It has been categorized in a very good, very easy to search way. You can register and obtain a login ID and password on the UGC Care's website and take a look at them, and ideally go to the nearest university library and pick up a journal with that name. What choose, let us say, 3 to 4 journals. Don't zero in on one journal itself in the initial stage. Take a look at the list of journals and select at least 3 to 4 journals. Pick up their issues from the nearest university library and then decide which would be the apt journal for you. Don't fall for the words of publishers when they claim that their journal is listed in UGC Care. You should first go to the UGC Care's website and cross-check the list. It may be possible that you are getting a lot of unsolicited emails from different unheard of publishers to say that their journal is indexed in Scopus, their journal is indexed in Google, their journal is indexed in UGC Care and all. Ideally, such claims are not to be accepted in the face value. Go to the UGC Care website, because this journal article which you are publishing within your purview of your PhD term, that is mandatory, and UGC stipulates that it has to be in the journal which is listed under UGC Care. So that is clear. Otherwise, your thesis will not be accepted. After you join for a job and you do your further research, you do a postdoctoral study, you take up minor projects or major projects of funding agencies, and then you do a publication, there is no stipulation like that. But however, during your studies, during your PhD term, you will have to look at what is the stipulation of UGC. So that way you have to be extremely careful.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Salina.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, my name is Sunita. I'm a research scholar of Economics Department, Government College for Women. Sir, in the slide you were talking about IMF podcast.
Yes.
Sir, is it free or are we supposed to pay it for accessing it?
No, there is no payment.
There is no pay.
It's
So
completely free.
okay, from the IMF's site, should we get it
Yes.
or?
That link is there. I have provided it on that
Okay, we can
PowerPoint.
access it via that
You can,
link, right?
yeah, that link is there. You just click the link. It will take you directly to the IMF podcast website, where you can see all the 550 plus podcasts. Every now and then they release new podcasts also. It's
Okay.
very good
Okay, we can
resource.
download it or we can
Yes,
hear
yes,
it
you can
online.
download, play, or you can play online, whichever way you want.
Yes, okay. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sunita. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Sriram sir. I'm
Good
Chaitra
evening.
here.
Good
I'm
evening.
from Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham, Mysore. Sir, this is regarding the podcast that you spoke about.
Yeah.
So we would like to know if there are any specific podcast for human resource on the HR as such.
Yes, of course. Podcasts are there in umpteen number of topics. I have today, since the topic is exclusively for students of economics, I have selected a podcast which is useful for them. That's all. Podcasting is now the trend, madam. Every higher education institution or every research institution, every international body, for that matter, even media and blogs are all coming up with podcasts. It's an easier mechanism now to convey whatever you have to say. The data transfer is less, the recording is more, the audio clarity has improved. All you need is your mobile phone and a headset and a data connection. You can just start a channel in SoundCloud or umpteen number of podcasting websites are there. Just like you have the YouTube for videos, for podcasting also umpteen number of websites are there. The SoundCloud is the most popular one, where you will see quite a lot of podcasting channels are there. You can take a look at that, and in whichever area you are interested, you will definitely find quite a lot of podcasts available.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Hello, sir. Hello. Am I
Hello?
audible?
Yes, you are audible. You can ask.
Sir, can you tell something about the informations available about higher education opportunities? Because I'm an undergrad student and I don't know much about where to look for informations regarding this.
Higher education opportunities in India or abroad? What are you looking at exactly?
Sir, I'm fine with both, especially India, but general
Okay.
also, there's no problem.
Okay. See, specifically, you can look at the announcements that are coming up in media, especially in newspapers, of institutions who release their announcements for admissions. The leading institutional rankings are also available on the internet, where you can look at whichever topic you are interested in taking up for your higher studies. You can look at what are the leading institutions that are providing it. And if you take, let us say, study abroad, quite a lot of scholarships are also available in the UK, in European Union, in the United States of America. You can go to their websites and see whether you are eligible to apply. So you can put in your application for that also. In India also, you will see quite a lot of institutions have higher educational streams, higher education's institutions of excellence like IIMs, IITs are also having humanities and social science departments, apart from the leading universities. So, and quite a lot of other private universities are also coming up who provide higher educational courses. So you can, there is no breadth of information actually. So you can actually take some time, zero in on the institutions and topics that you would like to apply, and then take it forward slowly.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Thank you, Deepika.
Okay. So this is Reti from Amrita Vishwavidyapeetham, Mysore
Yes.
campus. So actually, it was wonderful presentation, sir.
Thank you.
It was so calm and it was very nice to hear, sir. Sir, can you tell something about the impact factor of the journal, sir? How to calculate it? And one more question, sir. One more doubt, actually. When we look into a journal, we can see SJR and SNIP. Which one we have to consider, sir? Is it SJR or SNIP? Which is having more weightage? These are the two doubts, sir. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm not acquainted with both. You will have to ask some other learned person about it. Counting the indexing rankings of journals, there are quite a lot of yardsticks now available, including the yardstick that you are asking for, as well as several other ranking systems. Very simple videos are available on the YouTube as well. I will not go in detail about it. Citation rankings are extremely important while choosing your journal, wherever you want to publish. You would look at the impact factor of the journal, whether it is having high impact, which means the chances of your journal article getting visibility is more. That is the idea about it. That is why editors would compete with each other to get good journal articles published in their journals, so that it's mutually complementary. Having said that, I would also recommend to you that you should also look at open access journals for publication. If you have, let us say, a paid commercial access journal as well as a good open access journal published by a university or a research institute, then you should also look at whether you can actually publish in an open access journal, because that also gets high rankings very fast, because visibility is more number of people will be able to download and share your article. So automatically your article will be used by quite a lot of people. So rankings are extremely important. While the other two yardsticks which you have asked, unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe you can drop an email to my email address. It's there on the PPT. I will learn more about it and I will reply to you.
Sure, sir. Sure. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Riddhi. Thank you very
Thank
much. Is there anyone else who are having any kind of doubts? Please come forward. Anyone? Please do ask your doubts. Okay. It's look like we have covered all our questions and have cleared the doubts. It's time to conclude today's webinar. For delivering vote of thanks, I invite Sunita, Research Scholar, Economics Department, Government College for Women. Over to you, Sunita.
Thank you, Danya. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sunita, and I'm here to present the vote of thanks for today's webinar. First of all, I thank our Vice Principal for her valuable presence here. And next, I thank the speaker for the day, Sri Sriram Sir, Chief Librarian, CDS Thiruvananthapuram, for enlightening us with his knowledge. The topic Digital Resources for Social Science Research is actually a very relevant title, especially in the present scenario and for research scholars like us. Sir, you have introduced a lot of new sources and each and every terms were well explained and your presentation was precise and clear. Thank you so much, sir. And I'm sure it has benefited each and every one of us here. Next, I must extend my sincere gratitude to our dear and most respected head of the department, Dr. Uma Jyoti ma'am, for her constant support and active involvement in all the initiatives. Thank you so much, ma'am. Next, I extend my gratitude to our dear faculties of our department, Ganeshri ma'am and Anju ma'am, who have joined us today and for her invariant support. Also, I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Manju ma'am from Karyavattam campus, Darshana ma'am representing Sakita Alumni Association, Department of Economics, Government College for Women, then Bini Madam representing our library, and many others from outside the college who have joined us today. Thank you so much. Last but not the least, I thank our DITAS, the Forum of Research Scholars, Department of Economics, Government College for Women, for actively coordinating the webinar. And I thank all our dear participants from our college as well as from the college and as well as outside our college for joining us today and for asking valuable doubts. Also, I thank Chitralekha for the prayer and Danya for her anchoring. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sunitha. I once again thank everyone who made this meeting possible. I also convey special thanks to Sriram sir for giving us a wonderful and moreover a useful session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice and good